This one method changed my life. Will it change yours? E+R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. It said that you cannot control the events that happen to you. A tree falls, a storm blows in, you slip and fall on ice or the wet floor or something. All out of your control. But you can control your response to the event, and in doing so, you can influence the outcome. This concept, which you can build into a skill that works both ways. If the event is positive, how you respond to that event can lead to both a positive or a negative outcome. Let's look at a quick example. You end up landing the job you've always wanted. It's a positive event. And during the next, say, 6 months, your response to that job is you feel like they owe you. You're always, it's great that you're here. You're so great, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to try anymore. There's no effort. Sometimes you show up on time. Sometimes you show up late. It doesn't matter. You landed the job, so now you're in. They can't do anything. And this becomes the reason why you become fired. Right? Like, you saw that coming in the conversation here. Positive event, negative outcome. More often than not, though, you're going to use this method, this E+R equals O, to influence a negative event. I grew up a blue-collar guy. Never had any training, formal or informal, about the world of money or investing. That was one of my events. My response to that was that I read, I studied, I learned, I went out and seeked out others that had done what I was looking to do. I tried and I failed, and I tried again and I failed, and I tried numerous times and failed numerous times. But each time I brushed myself off. My response then led to an outcome of financial security, of me making investments, buying real estate, creating multiple streams of income, and serving the community through my business. I founded a preschool. I've spoken about Bruce Schneider's 7 levels of perception before. The first 2 levels, victim and conflict. And I spent plenty of time in conflict. But it's in these 2 levels where many people reside. Simply because they believe that life happens to them. That outside forces or events shape their lives. But what if we listened to Tony Robbins? What if life happens for us, not to us? Then what? You see how we can take advantage of those events? Viktor Frankle is quoted as saying, between stimulus and response, there's space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and freedom. Those are some very wise words. In that space is our power to choose our response. I ask you, in your life, have you had events that have happened to you? What was your response? Or if you're like, I am, or I was, did you just react? Because you see, a reaction's emotional. Action, a lot of times, is when the dust settles, you're like, I don't even know where that came from. That's so unlike me. Because it came from deep inside. It was emotional. You just reacted. E+R equals O will help you move from reaction to response. And a response is where we kind of hit the pause button, right? We slow things down a bit. And in that pause, we can activate our consciousness. We start taking emotion out of the equation and we replace it with logic. What if we could build the skill of analyzing the event, choosing our response, and treating that outcome like the very next event? Analyzing the outcome again, and the role my former response played in it, and then formulating a new response to the now second event. I'm repeating this over and over and over until we reach the best possible outcome. And in doing so, we may be able to move from a disastrous outcome to a not so disastrous outcome, or maybe even a neutral outcome. As time goes on and we perform this skill over and over and over again, we become very proficient. And here is the secret, guys. Those that become really good at this, those that can run this quickly and efficiently, will win every time. Speed becomes your ally. E+R equals O is a tool that allows you to take the reins back of the reins of your life back. When I was a kid, I had no clue what I really wanted out of life. I was living life like I was on the lazy river tube rides at the amusement parks. I was just drifting on by. My event came when I took the entrance exam for the police department. I passed the test, and everybody that passed the test, they end up reaching out to you. They call you down to start your investigation. So you make the trek all the way down there. I showed up, and I showed up only to find out I was too young to start. Who knew? I had no clue. My response to that event was to show up, even knowing that they would just send me home again. And by showing up, I was forced to take time off from work, which meant I wasn't being paid. To show up, I had to take a 45-minute train ride, transfer to a second train for another 30 minutes, just to stand outside on a long line that would take anywhere from an hour to 3 hours before, you probably already guessed it, I got the old, "You're too young, you'll be recycled, and we'll call you back again." Now, by the third time, and in the moment I didn't know it was going to be the last time, but by the third time, I was standing there on the train platform in the rain. It was a miserable, cold day. The rain was blowing. And I thought to myself, what am I doing here? Am I just I'm just going down to get recycled again. They know I'm too young. What the hell are they doing? Why are they doing this to me? And at that moment, the train pulls into the station. Remember, it's in this moment, the space between the stimulus of the train pulling in and the combatant thoughts that I'm having, that's the stimulus. In the space between that stimulus and the response I have to that stimulus that ultimately creates the outcome. And let me tell you, 30 years later, God, I'm still thankful that God placed his hand on my shoulder and shoved me through the doors of that train. It was actually the guy behind me, but I like thinking and believing that God put that guy there. He's my guardian angel. But that response to stepping into those open doors led to a decade as a police officer and a decade and a half as a fireman. Imagine the ripple effect that had on so many people's lives and how much good I've done in the world. And those were some of the best years I lived. Thank God I stepped through those train doors. Let me share one more secret with you. Let's call this E+R equals O on steroids. Because after learning this and implementing it in my daily life, I decided to take a page from back in my early days. Like, I was thinking about how this was so powerful for me. How can I make it more powerful? And back then, the hiring process to become a police officer, there was a psych eval performed. That psych eval was first a written, we'd fill out like a 200-page questionnaire, and then we'd have an interview with the psychologist. The last question he asked me was, and this guy was a little guy, he was a little annoying, beady eyes, like glasses, like, hey, if you knew with 100% certainty that the next person to walk through this door was going to kill you, what would you do? This is a ground ball. I'd go out there, I'd hunt them down, I'd kill them before they even knew what hit them. That's what I would do. It was a pretty aggressive statement. I'm a pretty aggressive guy sometimes. And if you're just as aggressive as I am, then this next tip's for you. Work it backwards. Work the E+R equals O equation backwards. Start with the O. Wake up each morning and decide what outcome you're going to receive from this day. Then, choose what action or response, what action you're going to take in order to give you the best shot of achieving that outcome. This is going to do two things, one of two things. It could do both things, I guess, but it's going to do one of two things for you. It's going to melt the E away. You will have gotten to it and destroyed it before it even knew what hit it. So you're going to kind of just cruise through the day then. Or it will put you in a position to adjust and continue your push forward. When attacking it from this angle, you're building momentum. Momentum's your friend. You're building momentum from the very, very beginning. Remember, this small wooden door chock right here. This small wooden door chock can prevent a 200-ton steam locomotive from starting to roll from the standstill. But once that locomotive gets moving, once it gets momentum, it can blast through anything. Once it gets momentum behind it, it actually becomes unstoppable! Guys, use E+R equals O to go out there and be unstoppable. Crush your day. I love you guys. Have a great day.